Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're having a great day, and hey, you're ready for some Computer America. So obviously, this is going to be a very, very fun show. Ralph Bond joins us. He is probably our longest running correspondent here on Computer America. We have a lot of fun talking about it, and over time, his segment has evolved, of course, into being our science and tech trends correspondent. This is everything science-based, tech-based, and just how a lot of this really kind of intersects, and it's a lot of fun. It's really innovative, and a lot of these stories, even though they're very important, even though they have great implications, well, let's face it, they don't really capture headlines like a number of other stories in other parts of the tech sphere do. So, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun. We have a number of stories, and we're going to try to get to as many as we possibly can, and hey, we're going to do it all with Ralph Bond. So, but before we do that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's shows, past shows, future shows, podcasts, archives, articles, reviews, topics, and more. Social media, things like that, and more at computeramerica.com. Check it out. And of course, up there, we'll have the show notes after the program with everything that we talk about here today. So if you want to dig in more, if you want to find it yourself, we'll be sure to have that for you. And of course, a link to our guest website. So I think with that being said, not really a whole bunch that I need to announce. Everything's going well here. You may have noticed the past couple of shows we have taken off, and by we, I mean me. I have not been able to see, but now I see a little bit better. For those of you who are avid watchers of the video portion, no glasses. So I don't know how much of a change that will make in this whole thing. Yes, Ralph gave me the thumbs up, and yeah, I'm not sure how big of a difference that will make, but I like it. So there we go. Everyone, let's go ahead and bring Ralph on and just get started with today. So everyone, as I said before, he had a long stint with Intel, long stint with Autodesk, and now he has a long stint here as our science and tech trends correspondent for Computer America. And everyone, welcome back onto the program once again, Ralph Bond. Ralph, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's still always great to be with you. And you're so right. A lot of the stories we talk about are significant to the science and technology communities, but they fly under the radar of mainstream news services, right? So I'd like to think we're performing a very valuable service and sharing this with the listeners. So
it's hard. Definitely. And it's hard to achieve, that level of recognition when Elon Musk says anything, or, when Amazon makes a minor change, completely trumps, stuff like self-healing concrete or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah. So hey, but they're very real. They're very interesting stories, and I'm happy that you could bring them to us, Ralph. Let's go ahead and talk about real quick, Ralph, you and your background, and just talk about what it is that you try to do here on the program.
Well, as you mentioned before, I spent a long, long stint at Intel Corporation up here in Oregon, and loved it. It was great, in large part serving the Intel Architecture Labs, which was sort of like the Bell Labs of Intel, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
And then, unfortunately, was laid off from them in October of 2006. But by the grace of God, I was picked up by some friends of mine who were working at Autodesk, and had a wonderful 10-year final segment of my career. Now I'm semi-retired and doing great stuff like with you on Computer America, and also on a local radio station here called KEX, doing a weekly news segment with them, also sharing with audiences that might never hear these stories otherwise. So it really is fun. And before we dive into the first story, I want to share two guilty pleasure streaming things I'm on to these days.
All right.
So
All right. I'm
this
listening.
has nothing to do with anything except guilty pleasure.
I'm ready.
So if you're into graphic novels and sci-fi fantasy kinds of shows and stuff, and I know you are,
Mhm.
one is on Amazon Prime. It's called Hana. It has 2 seasons. I'm almost finished with season 2 now, and it is trippy. It's about it's about this young woman, and then she joins other young women that are being programmed to be CIA killers. And it's got this kind of sci-fi element to it, and it's just addicting. So that if you're into that kind of stuff, check it out. The other one I just
Mhm.
started is very graphic novel like. In fact, I think it's based on a graphic novel. It's called Warrior Nun. Warrior Nun, as nun in the Catholic Church,
Really?
on Netflix, and it is a bizarre fantasy thing, and it's a lot of fun, very campy. And there it is. It's just, if you need to escape reality, check those 2 shows out. Those are the ones that are on my mind these days.
And it's something that I've been following as kind of like a different side project, and it's just hearing about, obviously, with COVID and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Listening to the big studios talk about when it's finally safe to reopen movies and movie theaters.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I got to say that I know that they don't produce these things overnight, but man, streaming has really filled in that gap of
Yes,
what
sir.
we can do with our spare time. And all like Hulu, Disney, even
Yes.
Amazon Prime, like you said, Netflix, of course, they've all really put out some really good programming for us to watch at home.
Well, I'll give you another little nugget on this. NBC, their so-called Peacock
Yeah,
service,
Peacock.
which
Yeah.
they're actually, now I just got a notice, an email, that they're going to have some original production. So there's another outlet creating original stuff. So there you go.
I'm glad, because NBC has some of my favorite shows, and they totally should be more than just a repository for old shows that
Right.
they've had. So I'm glad to hear
Yep.
that they're doing new stuff too. So with that being said, we'll include
Yep.
those in the show notes just for fun. But we have this main show notes, this main section here, and this is,
Yay.
of course, Ralph and everything. And hey, stories, numbering. Let's see, 13 different pages. Story number 11, I think, in total. We're probably not going to be able to get to them all, but we're going to do
See,
our best,
we'll try.
and we'll try. And we're going to start with story number 1.
Yes, this is a fun one. Got it from Medical Express, written by a fella from the University of Alabama. And the headline: Supercomputer identifies 125 natural compounds. We'll talk about why that's significant, with potential to beat COVID-19. So, if you recall, back in March, I think it was, we talked about the big announcement from IBM's supercomputer group, where they talked about identifying 77 promising drug compounds to battle COVID-19. And it'd be fun to find out where they are with that. But what we're talking about here is looking for naturally occurring compounds, not synthetic ones or what have you. That's the kind of cool part of this story. So, since then, since March, of course, as you know, Ben, supercomputers around the world have been hard at work helping to research ways to battle the coronavirus. And the latest exciting news comes from scientists at the University of Alabama. It's the first time, they claim, that a supercomputer has been used to evaluate the ability of, again, naturally occurring compounds to disable the proteins made by COVID-19. So here's a little refresh on why the proteins are so important. Remember, the coronavirus's proteins help the virus replicate itself in infected cells. So if you can disable the proteins of the COVID-19 or the coronavirus, you could stop it in its tracks. That's the essential thing. And you can dive in and learn online much more about all that. The University of Alabama supercomputer was used to rapidly evaluate 50,000 natural compounds to source chemicals, again, from nature. So far, they've discovered 125 naturally occurring compounds to combat the coronavirus proteins, as we mentioned before. And what's so exciting about this, Ben, is this experiment only tested one batch of natural compounds, but there are more than 400,000 compounds, the folks in the University of Alabama tell us, that could be potentially tested. So, wow. I mean, this is another new, channel, new avenue for research and so forth. And it blows my mind, Ben, all across the world, all these different institutions, all of this brain power fighting COVID-19. I'm sure we will beat this thing at some point, but it just blows my mind, the spectrum of stuff people are trying.
Ralph, is 400,000 like really exciting, or is that daunting with, one done, 400,000 to go? Obviously, any kind of like quick research that we're hoping to get done here isn't going to happen extremely quickly, but it is new research, which is always good.
Yeah, it's a new path, and that's what I think is so exciting about this particular
there you
story.
Go. And by the way, I should probably look before I say this and see if it was one of the stories that you covered, although I don't believe I saw it in there. Do we have a story about the latest supercomputer that was named since you were last on the show?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's here either. So just real quick, because you were mentioning, this whole thing came from using supercomputers to identify, these compounds, and because we talk about them so often in the research and how they come up. I did just want to mention that this was about 2 weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks now, obviously since you were last on, but and I think it's like Fugaku, I think is how you say this. And this one's from CNN, but it goes to show that a new supercomputer was created, and this one in Japan, named the fastest supercomputer on the planet, made by Fujitsu, which I think made digital cameras. But hey, now they're doing this. So Fujitsu, Riken, and the top 500 named it the latest one, and they said that it can perform up to 415 quadrillion. Yeah, which is, of course, 415,000 trillion, by the way. And, of course, you work your way down from there. Computations a second, not a minute, not a day, not an hour, a second. And it's about 2.8 times faster than Summit, which was the previous top spot. So if you're wondering, how good can supercomputers get, think about, the transition of, the previous first place to the second first place, or to the latter first place, and it's almost 3 times faster, even at these higher levels of computers. Technology is advancing, like even if you don't think your cell phone is advancing all that much, supercomputers are really taking the cake. It's crazy.
Ben, you raise a good point, because in the world of supercomputing, literally the entire globe, it's this kind of leapfrogging thing all the time. This computer now, 2, 3, 4, 6 months later, somebody else, and it's inchworming up as these folks challenge each other to get better and better, and then throw in quantum computing as in the future, and oh my gosh, it's just your brain just melts.
I think they already are starting a list of new quantum computers, because I think the list of companies that are doing it is beyond just IBM and Google and whatever. I think now they even have like a top 20 list of of quantum computers. So high tech, and of course, think about the story that we just did with these 40,000 different compounds, or 400,000. I'm sorry. Supercomputers can of course narrow that down with even more computations. So.
Super cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. And of course, this ties in again to story number 2 that we're going to move on to, because we hear about all these different possible trials and candidates for cures and so on and so forth. I'm really glad that you found this next story, because it really does put it into perspective just how close we are to this whole coronavirus vaccine kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. So this comes from the New York Times. It's compiled by Jonathan Coram, Denise Grady, and Carl Zimmer. Applause to them. And it's updated. So what we're talking about, folks, if you are able to see us right now and see the notes, you know what's going on. But if you're just listening to us, it's a coronavirus vaccine tracker. And what it does is it has 5 categories. Category 1, vaccines not yet in human trials, but under development. Category 2, or phase 2, phase 1, vaccines testing safety and dosage. Phase 2, vaccines in expanded safety trials. Phase 3, vaccines in large scale efficacy tests. And the last part, approval, vaccines approved for limited use. So as of today, July 10, we have 135 plus vaccines not yet in human trials. So they're in the so-called preclinical stage. Phase 1, vaccines testing safety and dosage, 14. Phase 2, vaccines in expanded safety trials, 11. Phase 3, vaccines in large-scale efficacy tests, 4. And 1 approved for limited use. The 1, by the way, is in China, as I understand it, and it's being applied first to members of the Chinese military. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one. But it's kind of a fun thing. And to your point, Ben, how nice. You hear about all this. It's all this kind of noise going on about different trials. And this condenses it down into a wonderful chart.
Yeah, they're just like with everyday news that you hear. It's again the headlines. It's which company can make the headlines, and of course that goes investors, and of course with medical research, funding is always a huge deal. So if you can't make headlines, you don't get your funding, and these things kind of stop. But it's nice to have an article like this from the New York Times that just kind of strips it all away and goes, who's actually close? You hear everyone's closer, and 14, 11, 4, 1 are numbers that I hadn't even heard of before, or at least put this way. I know. So
and it gives me hope. I mean, keep going, everybody.
Absolutely. And of course, they even include all the different companies that you hear every single day. Pfizer, Moderna, all these different ones. What phase they're on. There was one that I had heard about, and I'm trying to find it here on the list. Not Cambridge. Actually, it may have been Cambridge was working on a vaccine, and they were pretty close. But that one, since you collected the story, and then of course it was updated between you collecting it for the show and it being here. There were 0, and this was like 2 weeks ago, or even like a week ago. So we went from 0 to 1, and I'm really interested about that 1. Although I guess we don't know too much about it. Yeah,
be good to research it, and of course, not to cast any aspersions on the Chinese. How valid is this? And I pray to God it is, and it can be shared. But they are. My understanding, Ben, is it's being tested first on their own military members. That's
it's almost like a weekly thing that there's another claim coming out of China that you have to kind of say, well, then again,
let's see.
So yeah, definitely. So there you go. There's that story, and keep that bookmarked because obviously, hey, that will continue to be updated. It's something that New York Times, they do a lot of really good examples of showing massive amounts of data. Ralph, I'm not sure if you saw the article from the New York Times, I believe, where they collected all of the data that was collected on a singular person going to work, using their devices, going past Wi-Fi hotspots, things like that. Yeah. And they were able to visualize this person's, you would think digital life, and, and that makes sense. Yeah. But they were able to flesh out actually someone's actual life, like where they went, where their friends lived, where their job was, their route, and it's one thing to hear that Google kind of has that information, or Apple, or whoever has your information, but then to see it visualized like that by the New York Times, you realize, man, so much data and what it really means. So visually, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for a new career, I really do think not just data scientist, but data visualization is actually something.
Graphics.
Yeah, that's going to be a booming industry. So, okay, story number 2, and that was quick, short, like it. Story number 3, though. Let's. Okay, we're going a bit younger with this one.
Yes, this is so charming. I couldn't resist it. It's from Fast Company, a story by Lily Smith, and it was reported elsewhere too. A 6th grader redesigns the classic space impact game to combat COVID-19 anxiety. Again, from Fast Company. Charming. If you've got the show notes, if you're able to see them on your screen, you see this young fella here, and it's just so cute and so charming. But here's the deal. Israel Smith, a 12-year-old, sixth grader at Brookhaven Innovation Academy Charter School in Norcross, Georgia, wanted to help kids or other kids deal with their anxiety about coronavirus. Can you imagine what children must be going through watching their parents freaking out about this stuff? Well, anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so for an assignment in his computer software coding class, Smith built a video game where you zap cartoon-like COVID-19 virus bugs, and you're showing it on your screen there, Ben. That's great. What Smith did is redesign Nokia's old school cell phone game called Space Impact. So this is a really old school left-right panning kind of game, right? In the game, you control an avatar on the left of the screen, which shoots at bug-like coronaviruses that move across the screen from the right. Users determine which bugs are coronavirus and shoot at them to earn points. And periodically, there are screen pop-ups that appear with educational messages, such as symptoms range from mild to severe. And I tried it out, and it's fun, it's amusing, and but I just salute to this kid, because how creative. He thought, my friends and I are kind of anxious about this. Maybe I can give us some stress relief. Reaches back to an old cell phone game, gives it new life, and away you go. So salute to this little guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't realize that you could actually play it. I thought it was something that was only available to him and his class, and it looks like no, I'm actually playing it right now.
Yes.
I never played the original Impact.
It's very old school, buddy. Very old school.
well, and I've played a lot of the old Asteroids and Centipede and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
It seems to be in the same family, but where's your face mask and all these other little sayings. Very charming, very charming. So
yeah,
and,
Centipede. I've got Centipede on my Xbox 360, and it's just, you want to be driven insane.
Yeah,
Centipede, old school Centipede, and old school Frogger. Oh, they'll just put you.
No, it's
hard.
Yeah, I've enjoyed those immensely, and I got to say that another part of this that I definitely like is the fact that, well, hey, computer science being taught in schools, and not just that, but students are able to actually have true hands-on kind of experience like this. So further hope for the future. So there you go. So that's story number 3. Story number 4, flying right through that, right through these. Actually, we're making pretty good time. We might actually get to all of them. But story number 4, hey, someone with their eyes. I know that feel. But Facebook envisions.
There you go.
Yeah, Facebook envisions using holographics for super slim virtual reality glasses. Ralph, before we start all this, what is your experience with virtual reality?
Well, I've played around with Oculus Rift and a few things like that. I don't own these things, but I've played with them. My son has Oculus Rift. Mm-hmm. And, it's all well and good, but friends, it's like wearing a very big, deeply thick set of goggles. And it's not terribly uncomfortable. I don't want to suggest that it's uncomfortable, but it'd be a little hard for me to picture hours and hours of wearing them.
But it is noticeable, right? It is noticeable.
It's a noticeable thing. So, a salute to the Facebook Reality Labs folks, because this story, and I kind of gleaned information from 2 sources here, Engadget.com, a story by John Fingus, one of my favorite writers, and also The Verge, a story by Jay Peters, because this got quite a bit of coverage. And I want to, truth in lending statement up front. What I'm going to say is a super simplified, condensed brushwork of what this story is all about. It's very technical. If you're a geek and you want to dive into it, you'll dive into a very deep swimming pool about holographics and folded displays and all kinds of stuff you're going to learn about if you dig into this. But let's jump into this. As you and I were just saying, we've all seen the current crop of bulky virtual reality headsets that work, but are not comfortable for long-term wearing, rather. And there are some others out there, to be fair, that are smaller than, say, Oculus Rift and so on. But basically, that still holds true. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal. What if you could create a pair of slim, lightweight virtual reality glasses that look like large sunglasses? And if you're lucky enough to be online right now, you can see the show notes and see the picture of the gentleman there wearing them. That's what Facebook Reality Labs has developed using holographics. And now a very quick, super simplified refresh on holographic technology. stop for a second. Think about the holographic image you might see, say, in a science museum exhibit or on your credit card. Sometimes on your credit card, they have those little holographic images. The image appears to be 3D thanks to holographic optics, which involves the recording of the interaction of laser light with objects, right? And using holographic technology with flat films for the optics, the Facebook researchers have created virtual reality glasses with displays that are less than a half-inch thick, as you can see in the photo if you have
Hmm.
your computer going. And I have just glossed over in an extremely high-level layperson way. If you want to get into this, there's an endless swimming pool of deep, deep, deep geeky facts if you want to dive into how they're doing this. But the significance, if they can get these to work, they're monochrome right now, by the way, but if
Hmm.
they can get them to work full color and really perform, become financially viable and on and on and on, because this is still in research, this could be transformative, not just for long hours of gameplay, but for professional use, for professional training and other things like that, where perhaps wearing a big, heavy goggle set would be too uncomfortable. So the potential here is really interesting. And I just think it's kind of fun to think Facebook is more than what you usually think. They also have this Reality Labs group working and doing some pretty cool research.
Well, and even to Facebook's credit, Facebook, even though it was through an acquisition, they did purchase Oculus Rift. Rift
Mhm.
was the premier virtual reality,
Mhm.
kind of system, and then
Right.
Facebook said, "Okay, we'll buy it and give you all the funding that you need to really get this off the ground." Facebook was one of the first ones to really believe in virtual reality, and this is kind of like another branch of virtual reality with kind of holographic images,
Yeah.
but. I'm also kind of curious, Ralph, though. These and for those who can see the image of what these things look like,
Right.
I'm having trouble thinking of good applications for a holographic image that others can't see, because like that was the kind of the point of holographic images, like you mentioned, like science museums and displays and other things like that.
Mhm.
Anyone, regardless of the glasses, regardless of the point of view, anyone could see the holographic images. This one kind of displays them directly in front of your eyes for only you. Maybe for like schematics and things like that,
Yeah,
or
I think that's right. If you think about professional uses, as my notes just make a
Mhm.
passing reference to, oh my gosh, for training purposes, for examining, well, I'll reach back into my Autodesk days with the architecture, engineering, and construction division
Mhm.
I worked for 10 years. The idea of using VR glasses that are comfortable to do walkthroughs on virtual building site
Mm.
previews, what they call in the business charrettes, which means a fancy term for doing a walkthrough, a presentation of a display for the client. So all those kinds of things, and medical training possibilities. So there's some seriously cool things that could happen if this all works out. Now, again,
Right.
it's in development. It's not deployed. It's not ready for you and I to buy or get our hands on. But hey, it's. I just thought it was so interesting. It's a different approach to the
Yeah.
whole problem.
And I think that's my issue with it, is that I haven't seen it, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, they don't provide images of what it would look like inside the glasses. So I think I need to see that before I can say
Yeah,
this is the future.
agree.
Because this is not really virtual reality, like you said. This is these holographics kind of things. Like if it was virtual reality, I would imagine that you could see the peripheral of this gentleman's eye, kind of peeking out. Virtual is completely cutting you off from the physical and making again a virtual, all-encompassing
Interesting
reality.
point.
So
That's a
this
good
is more
point.
like this is somewhere even different than virtual or augmented that we're used to, because it's taking away your front vision. It's taking it's not taking away your peripherals, and obviously this is in development, but I don't know. This is like a third branch, and I'm
I think
curious.
you're onto something there. I
I,
think that's a very good observation. Yeah.
I'm curious where they can go with it, because obviously, if you're doing like a schematic or walking through a virtual building, you don't need virtual reality. You can just kind of get a good image of it. I don't know. Facebook, they are a leader in that kind of imaging, so I'm excited to
Yes.
see what they come up with.
Me
So
too.
there you go. Story number 4. Story number 5, though. I always like space. And this, this is always right up our alley. So, what is story number 5?
Yes. Okay. So headline. I couldn't resist this. And again, this is a good example of the kind of thing you were mentioning at the outset of the show. the kind of stories that are out there, but they never bubble up to the mainstream press.
Mm-hmm.
And so folks out there just don't get to hear about this stuff. Now, my wife would say, that's because, Ralph, nobody cares about the stuff you care about. So you're a geek and you're a weirdo. And so that's the deal. But anyway, I digress. Headline: Scientists confirm the basis of Einstein's theory of relativity. Got this story from Engadget, written by Mark DeAngelis. And I just couldn't resist this. So first, a layperson's super distilled refresh on Einstein's theory of relativity. So here it is in a nutshell. If you simultaneously, and you maybe remember this from your high school science classes, if you simultaneously drop a feather and a bowling ball in a vacuum, they will hit the ground at the same time. In other words, despite their mass, they are affected by gravitational field in exactly the same way. The same goes for massive objects like stars, according to Einstein's theory of relativity. And stop for a moment and think about, what is it, 100 years ago or something he was coming up with this stuff?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. More than 100 years ago, I think. Maybe was that 1909? Anyway, I forgot.
Well, and by the way, just as another little aside, like it seems to be whenever physicists and scientists are looking into this, like, first of all, it's so all-encompassing, like Einstein's theory. It's so all-encompassing. It's so simple that, people thought the rules of the universe could not be this simple. They have to be more complicated than that. And I think we're at the point where we pretty much take it as fact, and this article is going to get into that. But it's I've also seen a number of scientists that are excited when the possibility that it does not hold true, when something breaks Einstein's theory, because then that leads into an entire new branch of physics that we don't even know about. So,
sure,
so ladies and gentlemen out there, I just want you to think about this. Einstein's theory, if it breaks, if it holds not true, or it's not, it doesn't work for something, that's a very exciting good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's definitely a good thing. So, but it's also a good thing when everything works and it holds true. So.
Okay, and you know what? Another digression, diverting comment for a moment. Real scientists, real researchers revel in that.
Mm-hmm.
If I bet if Einstein were alive today and someone said, "Hey, fella, we've proven your thing wrong, but it's opened this whole new door," he'd be applauding.
Yeah,
it's not that. That's what I love about.
It's not a contest to be right. Yeah.
Thank you. It's unlike everything else in our lives. Our marriages, politics, everything. No, it's not a competition to be who's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so here's the big news on this story. An international team of astrophysicists led by the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom recently confirmed Einstein's theory. Rather, they confirmed the basis of the theory, I should say. The scientists use radio telescopes to measure how a neutron star orbits two white dwarf stars in a relationship similar to how the Earth and Moon orbit the Sun. So what they did is, by comparing the speed, motion, and masses of the bodies in question, the results show that all three stars are affected in the same way by their gravitational or gravity fields, which they contend confirms the basis of Einstein's theory. So it's very geeky, very deep, but kind of fun. And again, a great example of a story that just flies right under the radar of the mainstream press.
So, and I apologize for making you explain this to me. I don't know how much.
Oh, believe me, I probably can't.
Well, and obviously, a neutron star is a star that is either at the end of its life or just after the end of its life, where it collapses in on itself and creates this massive amount of energy. And I guess a neutron star is one of the most massive things that can happen, other than like a black hole. Many neutron stars become black holes. So the exciting thing here is that a neutron star, which should be infinitely more dense than even one or two white dwarf stars, the neutron star, the much heavier, much more massive object, is orbiting two much smaller orbits. Regardless of their mass, it's all a matter of their relation and their orbit to each other. Like it's just like the bowling ball and the feather kind of idea. It doesn't matter about the mass. It's all about gravitational pull, and there you go. So
that's it. Yeah, like it said here, all three stars, the neutron and the two white dwarfs affected in the same way by their gravitation or gravity
regardless of their
fields,
mass. Yeah.
regardless of their mass. So there you go. Isn't that fun?
Very, very interesting. I had not heard about that one, but
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and it's definitely cool to hear. Oh, and actually, related to this one, so many stories come up between our visits, Ralph, that sometimes I'm doing stories here on the show, and I did this one a week or two ago, and I was like, man,
okay.
Ralph would be so much fun to have on for this one. The Large Hadron Collider, the LHC. I'm sure that we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
That was the first device able to capture the Higgs boson particle, the God particle, blah blah blah. That was a missing part to the theory of relativity, and that whole thing. That was huge news back in 2018, I want to say, when they first filmed it. Very, very exciting. But, Ralph, did you hear about the next iteration of the Large Hadron Collider?
No. Tell me.
Let's see. Large Hadron Collider successor is, it's a giant Large Hadron Collider. Let's see. And I think it's... and I have the article from Ars Technica right here, great publication. And
Ars Technica is great.
Europe officially sets its sights on a giant Large Hadron Collider successor. The Large Hadron, if I'm remembering, and by the way, it says right here, 10 times larger. Yeah, the Large Hadron was 2.7 kilometers, which works out to just about a mile, I think, of supreme engineering. And now they have a new one set for sometime in 2040. So,
and are they saying it's 27 kilometers long? The first paragraph?
Yes. 27 kilometers long is the new one proposed.
Oh my goodness.
So, and it's going to go underneath the Swiss and French countrysides, and 27 kilometers long, 10 times larger than the current one. And that extra length is going to allow more acceleration and have even heavier particles slam into each other.
Wow.
So, this was just announced. Let's see, this article was published, just about 2 weeks ago. And
freaky.
Ralph, this may surprise you, but the largest hurdle that they have to overcome is going to be, of course, acquiring funding, because they said this thing's going to cost a number. Like, honestly, I don't have the money, but it seemed like it was like $3 billion to do this. And I was like, to build a 27 kilometer scientific instrument would take more than $3 billion. But
yeah, that seems like a reasonable price tag, actually.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it? And it's going to lead into a whole new branch of science that they can finally, observe things in. But
super cool.
Scientists are working on, kind of the future of testing these things. And they need, Ralph, I'm sure that you heard about the gravitational wave instruments that have been building a number of years ago. But scientists' tools are getting more and more precise, bigger and bigger, and costing billions of dollars, and it's cool. Honestly, as an armchair scientist and someone who can just sit here and just say, "Wow, that is cool," and then going on about their day, other people, this is their life's work, and it's paying dividends.
And you know what? That kind of endless push for research and so does ultimately give me hope about this coronavirus thing. I know it's dire right now. I know it's very discouraging right now. We're having lapses in Florida and elsewhere. It's all, but in the meantime, bang, bang, bang. The science community is not giving up and is relentlessly pursuing so many different channels. We're going to get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a lot of smart people, smarter than myself, are working on it. So I'm excited about that. Story number 6, though, and this is something that is a little bit closer. And actually, I'm going to bring up a video that came out of Japan, I want to say about a week ago.
Cool.
That is very relevant to this. But let's go ahead and do the article, and I'll show the video in the background as we do it.
Yes, I know you and I will get a big kick out of this. So here you go. The headline is, if you have $74,500 to spare, you can now buy one of Boston Dynamics' world-famous Spot robot dogs. Now, if you haven't seen one of these they're called robot dogs because they're a 4-legged robot, and they kind of look like a dog, sort of, kind of. This story I picked up from The Verge, a story by James Vincent. And again, the significance here is this very famous robot dog that Boston Dynamics has been developing for a number of years is finally available for purchase for $74,500, which sounds like a lot. I get you that. But again, you have to see this thing in action to believe it. There's the video. It's just freaking weird.
The video, for those who don't know, this was an army of Spot and Pepper. Pepper is the one made by Honda.
Yes.
The Honda robots, and they're cheerleaders. They're cheerleaders.
So great. That video is awesome. And friends, if you're not able to see the video, go back to Computer America after the show and get the link to the video so you can see this. That's charming. That's awesome. So, okay. So Ben, as you know, it's downright freaky to see these very agile robots run, climb over rock piles, dance, open doors, and scamper into rooms. And your video is a good example. So after years of development, the company began leasing Spot to a few businesses last year. But as of June 16, drum roll, Boston Dynamics is letting any U.S. firm, now it didn't talk about international, so that's kind of interesting. So June 16, Boston Dynamics is letting any U.S. firm buy their very own Spot for $74,500. Okay. Other than dancing and looking cute and whatever, what's the point? Well, to date, what have people been using these Spot robots for? Many, many things, by the way, but here's a sampling. Surveying and data collection, to hunt for machine faults in offshore oil rigs. That's interesting. To work, no surprise, with bomb squads, police bomb squads, military as well, I'm sure. And most recently, and I think we covered this story, I think back in March, most recently to help hospitals triage COVID-19 patients by mounting tablets on the robot's face area so that doctors and nurses can interview patients from a safe distance. Truly, actually been doing this with some of these robots, but there's an unending range of possible uses for these things. They are so amazing, and they're actually now beginning to get out there for sale. And well, time will tell. We'll see more uses for these guys.
This is one of the first times that I believe we've seen these robots, and obviously, Ralph, with your background, coming from Intel and Autodesk, I'm sure that you've seen plenty of utilization in the manufacturing, in kind of the heavier industrial side of technology. But this is the first time that, hey, any small company, any small firm can go out there and pay $74,000, while not nothing. Let's face it, every other robot that you've heard about, the robotic arms on car manufacturing lines, things like that, you've never even heard, you've never even heard a price because you can't afford it, and they know you can't afford it, so they don't even bother. It like honestly, if you want one of those robots, you call up and say, so how much is it? And then they kind of vet you and say, well, it's about $300,000 or so on and so forth. The fact that they're able to put a sticker on this and say, hey, anyone can come buy one, that's a first, and it's exciting. So 74,000 today. I mean, think about televisions. Ralph, just a couple of days ago, we talked about Vizio, which is one of the most popular.
Yes, I have some of their TVs. Yes.
Yeah, so do I. They're one of the most popular in people's households. They just said that they have like a 42 or 46 inch television, 4K for like $250.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and 4K technology 2 or 3 years ago would cost you over $1,000. So this robot Spot here today, $75,000. Maybe in 2, 3, 4 years, you're looking at the price of $10,000. Very affordable.
Possible.
So
anything's possible. Yeah.
It only gets cheaper and better from here. So there you go. Story number 7, right in your neck of the woods, a little distance from you, but Seattle.
Yes. So this is fun. A story from GeekWire written by Taylor Soper. Headline: Seattle startup Proprio raises $23 million to build ultra high-tech surgical navigation system. Oh my goodness, you have to see the video. It's really, really cool. Check it out. So some investors believe Proprio's system will be just as transformative to the medical world as the invention of X-ray. So there's some real excitement about this technology. Now, Proprio has a bold vision, which has been in development now for several years, by the way, to change the way surgeons work by using and combining advanced technology such as computer vision, robotics, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, and medical imaging. And you might say, well, all those technologies have been around, all those technologies have been applied to medicine, so Big whoop. Well, wait. They are developing a complete hardware software solution with overhead cameras, head mounted displays, and more. And you might also say, well, it sounds kind of familiar. So what? Hang on. Here we go. Proprio's live immersive virtual reality platform combines preoperative data with breakthrough real-time imaging technology to help surgeons plan an entire surgical procedure. The system produces a live, real-time, fused image, allowing surgeons to essentially look inside the body of the patient without having to glance at another screen. So if you're not familiar with surgical theaters today and so forth, you might be aware of the surgeon has the glasses with little microscope things on the, or that look like little mini telescopes on their eyeglasses.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have monitor screens and so forth. So the idea is to rely less on traditional separate surgical tools such as microscopes, glasses with magnifying lenses I just mentioned, monitors and radiological imagery, all of which the surgeon and the medical team has to turn their head to look at or look over or do something and so forth. They're trying to bring it all together in one system so that the surgeon can see all the information he or she needs without having to go to disparate, separate technologies in the operating room. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing to wrap your head around, but check the video out. It's compelling, I think, in the medical field.
Yeah, and of course the biggest thing here is of course that Ben is not the same as Ralph, is not the same as the person who was used in the textbook 20 years ago to put all these things together. So I guess for some reason surgeons find it more comforting to have no surprises during surgery. They don't they don't want to be like, well, it should be here but it's not here, or oh, that's unusual. They want everything to go as smoothly and as predictably as possible, and that is the part that I really liked there with the real-time imaging, was that hey, they're not just studying someone who is a 30-year-old male and Caucasian male. No, they're studying Ben. They're studying exactly what Ben is on the inside, and they're going to get it done correctly.
Yeah.
So
like I say, you need to see the video and so forth, and perhaps dive into it a little bit more if you're interested to really get a feel for what's going on. I see you're firing up the video right now. And it's just really medical science, or pardon me, medical technology is just so mind blowing. I mean, the fact that you could have a single headset, as it were, and have all this preoperative data and other things combine into one experience. So once again, you're not having to turn your head over to a Microsoft or turn your head to look up at some monitor over here up the upper right that's got the x-rays of the patient. It's just, that's what we're talking about, and that's why there's so much excitement about this system they've come up with. So DVD.
And it definitely reminds me of, obviously, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Lasik Eye Surgery.
Oh, yeah.
And just how technology-driven that particular procedure is. And to go through that, and by the way, no one told me that there would be a smell, like a charred flesh smell. But, yeah, exactly, right? I smelt like what my eyeballs would be if you cooked them. But
here's the deal, Ben, time out. There's no way I could do any of those things without being conked out.
But it was outpatient. The only anesthesia they have is for your eyeballs, and it's something very different to see. Like you see kind of okay, because obviously pre-LASIK, and then you feel them kind of peeling the layers of your eyeball back, and then I swear to God, I didn't feel a thing. I stayed up. I know you're squirming. I'm sure a lot of people out there are squirming as well. It was okay. I don't want to scare anyone away from LASIK. It worked out very well. But the point I wanted to make was, it's so technology driven. The machine that they had, and I was talking a bit, like I was actually talking with the surgeon as he was doing it. And he said that the machine that they were using was developed by IBM back in the 80s to carve up microprocessors and CPUs and things like that. But obviously, Ralph, we talk about the latest CPUs all the time and how nanoscopic they've gotten.
Oh yes.
But the machines from the 80s work perfectly well, and they're able to kind of cut the very, very thin layers of your eyes and reshape them to within super precise measurements. And I honestly, and like, this is how I hope all surgery is in the future, is where I feel like I overpaid because I was having a nice conversation with the guy, and the machine did almost everything for him.
Oh, I get it.
And it was so automated. It was so precise, but.
Wow.
Like, I understand why I paid what I paid for it, but but I can see how the technology is going to make it more affordable for everyone to kind of get that same level of treatment.
Well, that's exciting.
And I'm hoping that all surgery, here in this article, they were mentioning, or they were showing off things like spine surgery, which are incredibly precise.
Right.
No room for error there. You
got it.
With this technology, it's going to get better and easier, and that's exciting. So, okay, that's my little deviation. I didn't mean to freak anyone out with fried eyeballs.
You're a brave guy. I've gone through some pretty awful stuff surgically myself, but always off in La La Land.
Yeah,
totally unaware.
Luckily, I did not have to have my chest open up, so I think you still win this one, Ralph. Everyone else, story number 8. Let's transition a little bit into this. And
I love this one.
Oddly enough, this is not the first time I've heard of this technology, but this looks like a much more affordable version of this technology. So.
Well, and it's interesting you've heard of somebody else trying to do this idea. So kudos to you for that one, because it was kind of new to me. This is a story from techexplore.com by Christine Wei Lee. Sounds like redundancy, but if you see her name, you'll get it. From UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, of course. Headline, wearable tech glove translates sign language into speech in real time. Oh, this I just love this. I love it. Okay. UCLA bioengineers have designed a glove-like device that can translate American Sign Language into English speech in real time through a smartphone app. Another one of these wonderful things of symbiotic relationship between a technology device and your smartphone. The system includes a pair of gloves, of course, with thin, stretchable sensors that run the length of each of the 5 fingers. These sensors, made from electrically conducting yarns, pick up your hand motions and finger placements that represent individual letters, numbers, words, and phrases. The device then turns the finger movements into electrical signals, which are sent to a small circuit board on the glove. And again, if you have the show notes up on your screen, you see exactly what we're talking about. The board transmits those signals wirelessly to a smartphone that translates them into spoken words at the rate of about 1 word per second. So not super fast, but hey, think of the possibilities here. The researchers also created adhesive face sensors to capture facial expressions that are part of the American Sign Language. Now, UCLA has filed for a patent for this technology, but an estimate for commercial availability was not disclosed. But oh my Lord, can you imagine if you're someone who needs this technology and you cannot speak well enough for the hearing person you're engaging to understand? If you can have your smartphone out, maybe you have the smartphone on a lanyard on your chest here, on and ready to go, and you can just do your thing with your sign language, and it's speaking to somebody at the store or speaking to someone at the hotel or whatever the situation is. What a freeing breakthrough for people with this disability. I just love this kind of story.
Yeah, and like you said, obviously this is for someone who speaks through sign language, and so other people can who don't know sign language can understand them. There are so many other possibilities with these things that I think we've talked about, like the real-time translators for different languages that Google in particular is working on. A number of other companies are working on that. I would also be interested, like, this interconnectedness when it comes to language barriers. I'm also wondering if a glove like this, but with little actuators with little motors on them, I'm wondering if someone could possibly, at some point, make one of these gloves that you would kind of speak into your phone, and it would translate it by moving your hand for you, and it would do sign language for you.
Yes, yes. The other way around.
Yeah, exactly. The other way around. But of course, this particular article is dealing with the one way to the other. And I truly do believe that in the next couple of years, there will no longer be language barriers.
In many ways, including this situation. I love it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Very, very good observation.
For sure. And hey, the technology lends itself to a lot of other practices. So speaking of which, we have a robotic bee. So okay, Ralph, why bees?
Yeah, and this is another Northwest part of this country centric story. I couldn't resist. Headline: $1 million grant, doesn't seem like a lot of money, but $1 million grant to Washington State University will help researchers explore the use of, quote, robotic bees for crop pollination. It comes from GeekWire, a story by Lisa Stifler, and it's kind of fun. So first, let's refresh on the problem farmers are facing these days, especially here in the Northwest, and I suspect maybe elsewhere in the country. But because I live in Oregon, we're very hyper aware of this problem. So in order to pollinate their crops, farmers currently bring honeybee hives to their fields. But the US bee populations have been struggling since the mid 2000s with the rise of colony collapse disorder. Maybe you've heard of this, or not. Being from an agricultural part of the country, this is a big deal to us. And now our native bees are facing the threat. If that isn't bad enough, they're now facing the threat of the deadly Asian giant hornet, which has been spotted in Washington State and our friends to the north in British Columbia. Oh, great.
A nice double whammy, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that just great? So one possible solution: use robotic pollinators. That's what a team at Washington State University is exploring. And their project just received a 3-year grant totaling nearly $1 million from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. When you think about the money our federal government throws around, I would have given these guys a little more money than $1 million. But anyway, the team is adapting existing machine learning and robotics technology, including tools originally developed to mechanically thin plants or pick fruit. The research goal is to build robots that can locate flower blossoms and use a robotic hand to perform the delicate task of pollinating flowers. So it's not a flying virtual, mechanical bee.
Unfortunate.
But it's
unfortunate because we love drones. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool? But it's actually a mechanical arm thing with the ability to see a blossom and do the delicate pollination thing, replacing the bees, which is tragic that you need to do this. But at least somebody's thinking ahead and thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do if the bees are out?
Well, in my mind, and there's a lot of other things, and I have been following that pretty closely. The bee situation, and there are solutions. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, go find that out on your own, because there are some things that everyday people can do, like planting certain kinds of flowers and plants in their yard to kind of help that whole situation. But Ralph, something that we don't talk about that often, surprisingly, considering agriculture, but hydroponics and indoor growing and growing houses and things like that.
Yes.
Potentially this could be used for something. Obviously, obviously you can't just release a swarm of bees inside a room, but maybe a robotic pollinator could help for something.
That's an interesting point.
Hydroponics.
Yeah, that really is. And you know what, Ben, with the time left, if I may, let's jump to story 11.
Go for it.
That's really fun. So, and we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm kind of speed read through this a little bit here. Headline: Harvard researchers have created a new fabric for soft robots that does not require air compressors. And this is a news release from Harvard. And let's jump right into this. There's a great video, by the way, too. This is a breakthrough, that could enable a new range of therapeutic and industrial applications for soft fabric robots. Now, to date, and Ben, you know this all too well, the majority of textile-based soft robots are connected to air compressors via bulky tubes. The air pressure is used to change the shape or movement of the soft fabric robot. To eliminate the need for pumps and connecting tubes, researchers at Harvard have developed what they call smart thermally actuating textiles. Instead of pumping air into soft robot structures, they are inducing pressure changes in fabric chambers by electrically controlling liquid vapor phase changes to expand or contract. It gets very geeky. You can do more research on this. But again, the point is, with no need for air pumps and tethers, accordingly, a whole new range of portable, soft, textile robot applications becomes possible. That's why this is so exciting. For example, this new technology could be used for therapeutic wearables or devices. Imagine, for one example, smart, responsive cushions that could help prevent pressure sores. in wheelchair or hospital bed bound individuals. Just that alone, wouldn't that be great? And there's other uses. They can create these giant pads that can apply smart pressure to help accentuate tissue healing and repair,
Hmm.
almost like a massage kind of thing, but much more sophisticated. So I love this story because it's so interesting and creative form of soft robotics.
Yeah, and obviously you can imagine something like this where it has reached a truly mature stage. And think about maybe airbags, where instead of airbags just being this blanket inflatable device, something like this, you have the airbag deploy. It would sense where you are, and it would cushion you, and not just
Smart.
kind
That's
of
interesting.
slam into your face and try
Yes,
to
very interesting.
yeah, little applications like that. And of course, looking at it, I guess the big part here, I'm sure anyone out there who has used a flameless heater would know that when something gets hot, pressure is created. It looks like they're using the same idea of something that we all know, just in a new way. And that is my favorite kind of technology, because, hey, it means that there's actually a good chance you'll see it one day. So everyone, Ralph, man, you have good timing. We only missed one story, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be in the show notes at computeramerica.com. Ralph, yeah, so we'll definitely catch you next week. And hey, thank you so much for coming on Computer America.
Always a joy.
All right, so everyone out there, thank you for tuning in, and we'll be sure to catch you next time here on the Computer America Show. We'll be back Monday, starting bright and early, and we have a lot of great shows for you. Everyone, have a great one. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.